Hello and good afternoon to everybody here. Welcome to today's session, which is the session that we're going to talk about how you can win more tenders. And we will be using Cubicost TBQ for today's segment. My name is Derek, and I'll be a presenter for today. So, this session will be mainly focused on the Malaysian market. So if there's anything that you would like to ask during this session, you can either type in your question in the chat box or you can request to be unmuted. Then we will actually allow you to unmute and ask directly. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with today's segment. So with the recent MCO getting lifted up and everybody's getting back to work, I'm sure everybody is kind of having a lot of backlog projects which you are having to tender. So with the amount of tenders suddenly spiking, how do you as the contractors actually tender faster, more accurate, and also get the tender out with higher efficiency and accuracy? So how do you do this? Well, typically, if you have a PDF or hard copy tender, you will be taking quite a lot of time to do one single tender process. So even like the converting of the PDF into, let's say, some editable format like Excel for your quantity estimation, your own pricings, and so on, that itself will take a day or two, depending on how many QS you have on that task. So what if I tell you that you actually can bypass all these miscellaneous tasks and jump in directly into your own workflow, which is the key focus of you as the QS for contractor. So what you can do then is actually skip the task of changing this PDF or hard copy into something of an editable format. So how can you actually do this? Well, today we are here to find out. Introducing the software called TBQ. Now, TBQ is part of the Cubicost suite, which is our costing suite from Glodon. And TBQ stands for Tender Series for Bills of Quantity. So what this actually does is, let me first introduce you to the actual software. If you take a look here, TBQ is a very simple software which will actually allow you to manage your tenders much easier. So how does it help you to do so? For example, this is a very simple BQ format that you'll probably receive throughout your tendering practice as the contractor. Very simple, and you have your, of course, you will have the element pages, the header pages, title pages, and so on. And then you have your BQ, you have your collection pages, and then your final summary, and so on. So this is the typical format that you will probably receive. Whether you receive it in an actual PDF file or whether you receive it in a hard copy file, this is what you will get in a typical tender environment. So at this point, like, hey, how much time do you need to spend to convert this into an editable format so that you can start your costing work? Well, by using TBQ, you don't really have to spend any time at all. Let me demonstrate this to you. So say you have a hard copy which you take and scan, or maybe your consultant directly gives you a PDF copy of that BQ. What should you do then? By using TBQ, we are currently in the contractor version of TBQ. All I simply have to do is just create a new project. So I'm going to create a new project here. And I'm going to put this as, let's say, tender 001. You can put in the type of your project. For example, this could be for residential. You can put in your project number, supervisor, all this documentation works. You can then put in your location. For example, I'm going to put here as Selangor and click OK. So all I'm essentially need to do as a contractor QS who wants to tender for this project is I just need to create a new project, which is essentially a blank project, a blank canvas. And what I can do now is directly import said PDF that I have initially scanned or given to me from my consultant. So from here, I'm just going to select here, and then where is my frame BQ? Right here. And then just click on this PDF document. From here, just click on open. And this is my entire BQ. Fairly straightforward. So what do you have to do next? Absolutely nothing. Just one single click of a button. Click identify, and the software will actually convert the entire PDF into a format that you can edit. Now, this includes the software being able to take that PDF document and identify the headers, the subheaders, BQ items, and the different types of BQ pages as well. For example, if it is a BQ page versus a summary or a collection, the software automatically identifies each unique characteristic of the pages. So this can be done if you are having a PDF which is scanned, whether it is a little bit tilted or just straight, or even better if you can have a converted PDF, which is directly from the consultants, whatever method that they use, whether it's Excel or TBQ, and they save as a PDF, then that will be much better because you have the alignment. If the alignment is a little bit off, don't worry, you can still get the same results. So what you are left here is actual BQ where the source of each item is. By checking it like so, you can actually see where all your details are coming from. Admittedly, this is quite a small document, but by demonstrating on a small document, it just took like a couple of seconds, 1 or 2 minutes. While I was talking, the software already converted it for me. And this is where it gets interesting, because by using this software, which is TBQ, each pages are identified individually, which means you can see each individual page and check the collection page are automatically identified as well, which means if you do insert any sort of pricing into your BQ, for example, let's say for my vibrated reinforced concrete, I would, let's say, put here 150 ringgit. Any input that I do to my price, it automatically pops it back into the original format of my PDF, like so. So you don't have to worry about alignment, you don't have to worry about any arithmetical error, and best of all, everything is collected in one go. The page will be summed up, even the collection will be summed up automatically, and if you have your final summary, this will also be summed up. All of this is done by the software just in an instant. You don't have to worry about wrong formulas and so on. Now, this is a very basic introduction to our TBQ if you do have a PDF copy of your tender. Now, what if your consultants are already using TBQ and they give you an e-tender format? What should you do then? You don't have a hard copy to refer to, you don't have a PDF to refer to. What should you do? So if you do receive a tender format, in this case, a tender format from our TBQ software will look something like this. It's called a BQD file. So if you do receive the tender document in this format, it's even better. I'm going to create a new project to simulate that workflow then. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to put this as tender. Oh, sorry. I actually even have to create a new project. What I just need to do is just import state tender document. For example, I'm just going to go to my desktop, print tender, and just open up my BQD file. This BQD file may be a bit foreign to everybody here, but essentially it is a tender document, an electronic tender document. Each BQD file or electronic tender document is password protected, so you don't have to worry about someone else opening up the documents and so on. The consultants will provide you with the password. For example, in this case, let's say the consultant, when he passes this to me, it tells me that, okay, the password here is 123456. It's just for demonstration purpose. Not all files are the password is as simple as that. You have to consult with your consultant. With that, I just import it, and I don't even have to go through any sort of conversion or wait any time to for the software to run its process. Immediately, the software imports it and you are ready to go. This, however, is like a typical tender practice whereby you will not be allowed to change the description of say BQ. And it's a very straightforward one. This is according to each element. So if the consultant arranged according to element A, this is frame, element B is floor finish, you will get exactly like so. It's not according to pages. But then again, if you're using this TBQ, you don't need it to be in pages as well. This actually helps you with your pricing method. Now, speaking of price, what should you do with your pricing? With TBQ, you can actually have your own built-up rates library. This can be as simple as, let's just open a different subcategory, a new item. This can be as simple as putting in a description. For example, this is for concrete, grade 30, and inputting the unit, which is normally in the cube, and inputting your rates, your base rate, labor rate, and equipment rate. It can be as simple as that. You can also have your schedule of rates imported into the software. For example, your material rates, your labor, and also equipment. If you have an Excel file which you typically refer to as a template for your build-up rates, you can import all of those in. On my side, since I have the library already done for me, I'm just going to show you what a complete resource library will actually look like. As a contractor, you are bound to have multiple different suppliers, subcontractors, and also your own different rates for different locations. For example, if you need to consider the logistics and so on. All of this data can be kept within TBQ itself. You no longer have to go searching for that nasty Excel file, which maybe is parked under your company server, or someone else has actually moved it to a different location and you can find it at that given time. No longer any of those. By using TBQ, you have a centralized system which everybody in the company will be able to access the library. Everybody will be referring to one single library, which will make it more complete and more accurate. So all of these are actually linked to each other. This concrete grade 30, for example, is not as simple as just input one by one. It's actually built up from my schedule of rates. My raw material is from here, my labor, and also equipment. With this built up done in this manner, it's actually easier for me to adjust my pricing if there is any fluctuation of price in the market. Let me demonstrate. First, let me just input some of the rates into my BQ. To input the rates in the BQ, what I will first need to do is to actually connect my price library to my BQ. Fairly simple and straightforward. Let me first open this up first. Okay, and let me just make this a bit smaller so that you can actually follow what I'm doing. Right. For example, this is concrete grade 30. So all I have to do is just search for my concrete grade 30 inside my library, which is made easier by creating your own different subcategory. For example, you have one for reinforcement, you have for formwork, brickwork, concrete, and so on. Essentially, what you need to do is just drag and drop into the correct location. For example, this is concrete grade 30. So just put it into concrete grade 30 and just drag it all the way down. If, for example, this rate is applicable to all the other prices. For example, if you have multiple different elements and you have over 500 pages of BQ, if let's say you would like to price all of your concrete grade 30 in one go, you can utilize the filter function. So just click on this filter function right here and search for your correct description. So for example, I want to search for concrete. So only concrete items will be shown. Nothing really much has been seen here because all of it is under concrete works. Next thing, I would like to search for my grade specifically. So I search for grade 30. Grade 30 items will be shown. However, there are also certain scenarios whereby you have the same grade but different units. Of course, if you have different unit, your price will be different as well. So let's just filter all the meter cube items first. So over that few hundred pages, if you have 200-300 pages, all of your concrete grade 30 meter cube items will be shown, and you just need to just drag it all the way down. Simple, right? Now, what about that nasty meter square item? Filter it out for meter square. You can reuse the same price. You can just reuse this because it's for meter cube and just paste it downwards. From here, what I would then do is to actually adjust my factor. For example, this meter square item is 150 mm thick for shear wall. So if I were to convert the meter cube into meter square, I'm just going to convert the conversion factor into 0.15. That's it, as simple as that. You can do all your other pricing similarly. So if you have your rebar, you can do that. If you have your formwork, you can go ahead and input that as well. For example, just go ahead and input, should be my formwork. So this should be FT, and just drag all the way down. Same thing, if you have meter square as your base rate, and this is now in meter, you can actually see what is the conversion rates. So if you would like to convert this meter square into meter, same thing, you just go into your unit rates here and go ahead and change the conversion factor. Oh, sorry, this is actually floor tiles, so it's actually wrong. So formwork, just go ahead and do a quick check first. Where is my formwork rates? Okay, so this is under timber formworks, so TFC. You don't have to remember any of these codes. I just don't want to spend the time to open up a different window and just drag and drop. So TFC. There you go. And just drag all the way down. And convert this back. Let's say if this is 250 mm height, so 0.25. And you can actually see where this is starting to lead. Very simple, very straightforward process. So you've got your price linked into your BQ already. Now, what about your submission? Well, before we actually go into the submission, let's take a look at how you can actually check your rates and adjust if there's any price inflation in the time being. In Malaysia, we know that steel prices are actually rising these couple of days or these couple of months. So there will be some scenarios whereby if you're in the middle of tendering and you notice that, hey, the rates are actually going up, what should I do then? Well, let's take a look at, let's say for labor to cast concrete. For different concrete grades, we are using the same labor rates, right? So if you're changing one of it, the rest should change as well. By using the TBQ, everything is linked together. So all you have to do is just change your schedule of rates. Just go into your schedule of rates and just change it right about here. So for example, from 50 ringgit, put to, let's say, 65. With just one simple check, all of my original concrete grade rates will have changed. As you can see, 65 ringgit, 65, and 65. I don't have to be worried that my formulas is wrong. I don't even have to worry that my BQ is updated or not, because all of this is linked. If I were to check the new price for my concrete grade 30 now, is 304 ringgit. Go to BQ, do a quick check. Right there, 304 ringgit. Everything is linked. So as the contractor now, you're probably looking at, hey, how can I actually check how much is the total quantity that I will need for my concrete grade 30, maybe for purchasing, maybe to actually check on the cash flow to see when you actually want to purchase certain items. Where can you get all this information? TBQ is integrated with a built-in analysis system. One of the best one is something we call buy rate item. Buy rate item allows you to take a quicker look at the rates analysis that you have used in this particular project. What do I mean by this? Well, you probably have a very extensive rates library. including all of the rates which you are not going to be using in this project as well. So how do you actually know what is actually being used in this particular project and how much is the total for that? This particular analysis will show you exactly what rates you have used. For example, I'm now using formwork and also concrete grade 30 in this particular project. It will actually tell me the cost rate, the quantities, amount, and profit if you did insert the profit percentage. What's best is that if I take a look at my raw material, I can clearly see the total amount in meter cube for my project. Earlier, I've demonstrated that in TBQ, you will have different units, even though you're using the same price. For example, you have meter cube items, meter square items, meter run, and also sometimes you have lump sum items, right? How do you actually convert it back into the base quantity for maybe purchasing? The software does that for you. It converts meter cube, meter square, and meter run items into the actual base unit. This is based on the factor of your conversion earlier. So you can actually export as a contractor. You can actually give this to your purchasing department just by exporting to Excel, and you will get this exact report. So yep, any questions so far? Okay, so yeah, there's actually one question from Siti Nur Aisha, which actually is about the PDF format. She asks whether the PDF format, if it's image or scan, is it still can import? Yes, you can actually import if it's scan PDF. So if you have received a hard copy and scan it into TBQ, then you can actually get this result as well. Now, the format that you use, whether if you see is a scan PDF or you get an actual e-tender format from the consultant, you'll see that the format is a little bit different. It's the same BQ actually. Even though the format is different, the functions are essentially the same. It's only that it's much easier to navigate if you have the e-tender format. Once you have inserted your price and you have confirmed that this is indeed the tender file that you want, you can actually just click on generate tender submission. Just click on it. Input your company name. For example, I'm actually put my name, or maybe in this case would be your director or whoever is the last person that checks this BQ. Phone number is optional. This is just in case they need to contact you for tender interview or so on. And put in your own password. So you don't have to worry about any other outsiders getting a hold of your tender and opening it up. You have the right to reset your own different password. For example, the original password that my consultant gave me is 123456. I can put it whatever I want. So for example, I put A, B, C, D, E, F, something like this. So you don't have to worry about other consultants or other party in the construction industry getting a hand of your price because this is password protected. There's no way to open it unless you are the consultant with the correct password. So all that's left to do is just send this tender submission file to your consultant, and that's it. If there's any addendums, you can go ahead and import the new addendum as well. You can go through the entire process, just go ahead and import. And if there's an addendum, the software automatically detects that the new imports an addendum. This is all done automatically by the software. On your side, all you have to do is this. If you want to print out your hard copy, then you can actually go into, let's see, there is an option for you to print out the hard copy, like so. So if in case you do need to print out the hard copy as like part of the submission requirement from the consultant as well as the e-tender format, you don't have to handwrite everything because, you know, throughout the history of QSing, if you're doing handwritten stuff, there's bound to have some arithmetical error. Like the most common one would be an additional 0 or the not enough 1 0. And that could cause a lot of havoc when doing your arithmetical check. But with TBQ, no longer. You can directly print out the report, including your price, and everything is summed up properly. You can even go to your final summary and just check it. Everything is there. So just by this process alone, you can actually see how TBQ can speed up your process. And with the lack of need to actually check for arithmetical error, then it also speeds up the time that you need to spend for checking, for your printing, writing, hand inking, and so on already. So whether you receive PDF or you receive the e-tender format, you can actually just go ahead and use TBQ and import it directly. You don't have to do any conversion. You don't have to do anything that will probably extend your time doing the tender submission. What's more, as I've already mentioned, you can actually check your prices and easily manage it as well. Further to this, if you would like to further add on to your total amount, let's say during the tender interview, you would actually like to maybe provide a discount, or if you would like to actually up it by, let's say, a percentage of 3 for profit. What I can do for my entire BQ, I can up the entire BQ one shot by 3%. How I can do this is by going into the analysis, and there's a button here for me to adjust cost. For example, if I like to add on 3% to my total amount of tender, I'll just go ahead and select my markup ratio, and I'll mark it up by 1.03. Take a look at the total here. Once I click OK, the total automatically changes by 3%. Just by one click. You can choose to mark up according to certain bills, or for the entire BQ, or certain elements or certain page. Is really up to you how you want to do it. For example, if you just want to mark up only concrete items without touching the formwork, you can just go ahead and use the filter function again. So just go ahead and click on filter, and you go ahead and do the same thing. For example, concrete grade 30, only concrete grade 30 items will be selected. You can see the total here, it actually shows that. And you do the same thing, just go into analysis, adjust cost, and now you're adjusting only your concrete grade 30 items. For example, if this is more useful for a supply only item or install only item, whereby for specific items you want to charge a particular amount of profit. So yeah, just go ahead and do that. If your consultant or clients were to, let's say, hey, could you give me a discount? You see, right now the total for my entire bill is 305,000 and this additional extra. Can you just round it up, maybe to 300,000? Normally, you will have a hard time to justify that, hey, where can I remove this 5,034 ringgit and 71 cents from? This is all very standard items. Well, what you could do is, again, by using the same adjust cost function, you can directly input an adjusted total. For example, you just want the software to just give you 300,000. So I just put here, this is my total. I want my final amount to be 300,000. The software will round up to its best of its abilities to reach that number. Of course, because of dollars and cents, you might have a little bit of cents off, because the software will give you the markup ratios of each item. So TBQ not only allows you to mark up for a certain percentage, but if you are giving an overall discount for the client, TBQ can also work backwards to find out the actual markup ratio. This is important because if you were to check your markup ratio later on, you can actually see the process of your costing. This is internally very important for you as the contractor. You can see that this previously is up by 3%, and then round down because of overall figure. So you can keep track very easily on where to adjust your costs and what has been adjusted, particularly useful for contract managers and directors. As the contractor as well, not to worry if you want to suggest your own specifications or your own design. There's always the remarks tool at the back here, which you can input. And if the consultants actually allow you to input your own description, they will be a line for you to input. But right now, there's nothing that you can actually edit right here. So yeah, this has been a very simple and straightforward session. Before I actually go there, I would actually like to show you one more thing as a contractor is actually very useful for you, which is more on the rates. So as a contractor, when you are tendering for a certain project, you probably need to do a lot of forecasting of your price, right? So you will have a typical library, build-up rates library that you have inside your company. This is just a template that you will normally have for every single new project. How do you adjust or how do you forecast the price increase or price change for that new project in this current time? Well, very easily you can do that by clicking on this button right here. This is called price analysis. Price analysis is a very useful function which allows you to keep track of all of the changes that the price has gone through before in the past 12 months of my concrete price. So this concrete price has seen quite a lot of changes throughout the months. I can see the difference, the actual price for that particular month. So for example, I know December last month is 294 ringgit. And then it drops in March and it's continued all the way until now. This is just an example. Don't quote me on this for the price. Don't use this as a reference, please. But the important thing here is the year-on-year comparison and the month-on-month comparison. Month-on-month gives you a percentage of the difference between each different month. For example, you can see a drop right here. This is because between February and March, there has been a drop in price and it's been constant all the way since. More importantly for you, however, is the year-on-year comparison. Year-on-year comparison compares this year's month with the previous year's months. For example, in December, January, February, and March, until February right here, if I were to compare last year's December, January, and February with the previous year, I know that there's an increase in 8%. So even though I am in November now, if my BQ were to be, if my project were to run in December or early next year, I can actually forecast that there will be an increase in price for whatever this is at. So for example, 288 ringgit, I increase it by, let's say, by 8% and so on, then probably will be about 290 or 300 ringgit. So you can roughly gauge the trend of your prices here. Of course, this is available the more you use TBQ. This is just the statistics of all of your previous projects. You can gauge it by the last modified date, or if you want more accurate information, you can actually change it by the tender date. This will do a very quick comparison for each project's tender date instead of when you last modified it. So combining the ability to forecast your price, it easily adjust your price, the flexibility to mark up your price for your tender, and the lack of need to convert the PDF document in the first place, this gives you a recipe for success when you are doing a very quick and accurate tender. So with that, I think I can open the floor for Q&A. There's a question from Jasny Young. All the quantities in TRB and TS can be inserted into TBQ. As a contractor, if you are receiving a lump sum project, then probably you have to insert your own quantities. Then yes, for the audience that are here today who have no idea what TRB or TS is, TRB and TS is our measurement software for Cubicost suite. So in Cubicost suite, which is our costing solution, there is TAS for takeoff for architecture and structure, TRB for takeoff for reinforcement bar, and TBQ for the bills of quantity tendering purpose. And to answer Jasny, yes, the measurement that you've done inside a TRB and TAS can indeed be automatically linked into, not automatically linked, but you can indeed link the quantities from TRB and TAS into TBQ so that when you do have design changes like variation orders and so on, the quantities in your BQ will automatically update itself. You don't have to worry about missing out on all these different variations and so on. But that is a topic for another day. So any other questions regarding TBQ today? Yes, Jeremy, would you like to be unmuted, or do you have any question that you can type in the chat?
Hi.
Yes, Jeremy, you're already unmuted.
Hi, Azila here. Okay.
Hi, yes. Hi, Azila.
Okay, we from okay. I just want to ask. Okay, this one because it's just direct reps. Concrete is actually a direct one lah. Okay, like our company is from ID company, Interior Design. So how about the things that like example like built-in furniture? Okay, you have like um you have a build wall panel. So wall panel, this one is consists of acoustic panel. You have glass writing, and then you have plywood backing. How from this kind of software can break down the things? I mean, you have a composite item for that one. Can you just show to us?
For this one, I actually have to clarify because there are a couple of scenarios where this will happen. So one of the scenarios is that if your consultants actually give you a certain rows of description for you to input, like if there's any other common design, kindly list out, then you actually have the space to input, like let's say, like what you said, your plywood panel, your backing, and so on. This is one of it. Another type is fixed quantity BQ, which like what I'm showing here, whereby you won't be able to input your quantities. So if you receive the BQ, which allows you to actually input your actual breakdown of the prices, for example, sorry, your material, your composite material, you can actually do that like directly, just type in as normal. But if you receive a fixed quantity BQ like this, your composite materials will be done inside your build up rates. So just to confirm with you, Azila, you can just type yes or no in the chat, yeah? So these composite materials and the pricing, will you show it as part of your BQ pricing, or is this only for internal build up rates? For internal build up rates, right? So you probably won't be showing your consultant all these build up as well, right? So cases like this, you can actually do your any sort of composite costing inside this composite material right here. For example, right now you have your raw material list. You can also have your composite material list. In this case, for example, if I were to, let's say, include, let's say a new item here, or no, actually just open a new different subcategory and just rename this as probably, I'm going to use something which is, do forgive me because I'm not from the ID background, I'm actually from general building. So I'll just use something which is more familiar to me. For example, let's say concrete, right? In cases like this, what I can do is I can just create a new heading, which I can just put here as concrete. And an example would be to, let's say, input the cement, sand, aggregates, something like that. Oh, sorry, not this one. I'm just going to delete this first and use this, yeah, sub item. There you go. Rate 30. So I got cement, sand, and aggregates. You get the idea. So if you have all these internal backings, your backings, your plywoods, and so on, all inside the raw material here, what you can do is directly just drag and drop and build up your rates. For example, I just open up this new window right here. I'm inside my composite material now. And how do I build up my concrete here? I'll just go to my raw material and search for my aggregates. So just search all the way down. You can see sometimes your material can be in ready mix. Some of it is just for concrete only. Some of it is also just like for cement. So it really depends on how your material is, and that's how you will build your composite material as well. So for example, concreting and grading sand, and then my aggregates. And from here, I get my concrete grade 30, which I can link back into my build up to link with my material, labor, and machinery rates. So I hope this one is clear for you. Does this answer your question? Okay, great. So any other questions for today's session? Anything you'd like to know about TBQ? Anything you'd like to know about certain scenarios that you're experiencing? Okay, so once again, I did notice that we have some participants from not from Malaysia market, but from the international audience. So I do welcome you all to join the webinar, but once again, this is more focused on Malaysia market, but you can roughly get the idea of what TBQ can do for you in your specific region. Now, if for those who are joining today's seminar, but it's not from Malaysia market, you can actually contact the local agents to find out more or schedule a demonstration. But if there's nothing else, then I would like to thank everybody for coming for today's session. And before we actually all go, I would actually like to know what you think about today's session. And yeah, just drop your comments in the feedback form. And if you would like to schedule a more separate appointment or a more detailed or in-depth look into our TBQ or our measurement suite, which is TS and TRB, do let us know as well. You can scan the QR code for the feedback form or just use the link that we have posted into the chat. But other than that, we can actually, that's all for today, I guess. So yeah, thank you everyone. And I hope that you've enjoyed today's session. Should you need any follow-up, just let us know in the feedback form and we will get back to you very, very promptly. Thank you very much. And I'll see you guys in the next time that we do a new webinar.